So today we're starting a new series of a couple of videos talking about the depth that we have in the squad. We'll be starting today's episode with the defenders. Let's get into it. So before we do get into it, shout out to Andreas for this awesome idea. So like I just said, pretty much what we're going to do is we're going to go with our sort of back seven, including one on the bench that will probably start most of the games, and then we'll look at our depth of who can come in throughout the season, and then some players who can sort of rotate. I'm not going to give you like a lineup just yet. We'll do that in maybe the fourth video of this series, but let's get into it. So our defenders do run pretty deep. The only thing is that our deep sort of defenders and our depth defenders, a handful of them haven't really played any games. Well, pretty much all of them haven't played any games, barring Jacob Ryan that we'll talk about a little bit later on. We do have a couple of guys that will rotate through that sort of defense, like I've just said, but they probably will mainly play as a midfielder. But look, let's start with our sort of back six or back seven. Like I said, we'll do the interchange player as well, and just sort of go from there, see what we can get out of them. So in no particular order, Darcy Moore, of course, always going to sort of be there. Could be in for another absolutely huge year. You've got Isaac Quaynor, who is just looking absolutely primed for a huge year. And I dare say my prediction for Q is an All-Australian jersey this year. He obviously made the 44 last season, and I think he just goes one better. Not only is he a good sort of lockdown sort of defender, but his run and carry off halfback, and his intercept marking. You just got to think back to the first Melbourne final. He's taking marks at the death of the game, and without Q, we don't win that game, especially when Melbourne were just coming hard in that last quarter. We've got Braden Maynard there as well, our vice captain, and I don't see him moving anywhere else in that team. Could he sort of, touch into that midfield? I would love to see Maynard just, I'm not saying become a midfielder, but just, was there a game where he did start in the midfield? Or maybe I'm just sort of making that up in the head, but I'd love to see that sort of crash and bash around the ball. But of course, IQ and Maynard work so well in tandem together. You've got Jeremy Hell over there, Nathan Murphy. Now, Nathan Murphy is the big question mark for me. He's already had 9 or 10 concussions, and we know that in training, I think it was last week or the week before, in a tackle with Nick Dacos, he did hit his head. He was cleared. He came back to training, but out of contract this season. One more concussion, I feel like it might be the end of Nathan Murphy's career, especially now with everything that's sort of coming out around concussion, and it is a big talking point. And obviously, health and safety is paramount. Premierships are one thing, but the health and safety of players going through their whole entire life, not just their footballing career, their whole entire life is going to be really important. So Nathan Murphy, the AFL has cleared him to play, but I feel like one more concussion and that might be it for him, and it would be really sad. And you're probably going to say, let him wear a helmet. There's studies and stuff to say that helmets don't really help. They do soften the blow, but they don't really help, especially, he having 9 or so concussions already. So Murphy is a mainstay and he's a very important cog to our defenders, but if he does leave and he sort of gets that one more concussion, that might be it, and we will see someone sort of step up for him. And the last two I've got here in that sort of 7 is Oleg Markov and Will Hoskin-Elliott. So those two guys, Markov and Will Hoskin-Elliott, come out of nowhere, right? Both premiership players. Will Hoskin-Elliott was that sort of guy that was the poster boy for he should be dropped most of the season, but he plays a role so well. He can slot into the midfield if we need him to, like down that wing as a half forward, or chuck him at half back. I like him in the backline because he can take a good mark and he's a good user of the ball, and again plays that role very well. Markov has taken Noble's spot, and I dare say that he is the mainstay in the defence going into round 0, round 1, and the early games of the season. So they're my 7 defenders that will start round zero, barring any sort of injury or any sort of form that we don't really know of. So now we'll look at depth players. So like I mentioned at the start, we do have a bunch of depth players that are just no AFL experience or very limited AFL experience. The two senior depth players is John Noble and Billy Frampton. And it's incredible saying that Billy Frampton is a depth player, even though he is a premiership player. But I can't see him cracking into that that sort of defense unless, you know, a Nathan Murphy comes out, unless a Jeremy, like I just can't see it. Like even in the grand final, we used him as a defensive forward, so he wasn't even in the back line. So unless Murphy sort of comes out because of a concussion or something like that, I can't see Frampton cracking into that team. You know, maybe there's hope for him in the forward line or something like that, but I just can't see him cracking into that team. And John Noble as well. If you've watched my previous training videos, you know that I absolutely rate John Noble this year. I've rated him a lot, but this year, seeing him at training, it looks like he has a point to prove, and he has just been I hate to say it, training the house down, because he really has, and he's putting his sort of everything on the line to get back into this squad. But I feel that Markov and probably that Will Hoskin-Elliott spot is what Noble is vying for. Is he going to replace Markov? Is he going to replace Will Hoskin-Elliott? Can Noble sort of add another string to his bow and maybe do a Will Hoskin-Elliott role where he is on a wing, or he can, maybe not as a high half forward, but he can move into that sort of midfield on the wing and come for a soccer term, a box-to-box sort of midfielder, a forward arc to a defensive arc sort of midfielder that can help us out a little bit, because he does have a good run and carry and a penetrating foot. The depth players that I have here that haven't played a game is Charlie Dean, TJ and Dimatia. So Dimatia, they've said, and like Derek Heiner said, that he will start off as a halfback, so as a sort of halfback running defender with hopes to get into the midfield. Jacob Ryan is another one who's only played that one game, and he did get concussed in that game. And he hasn't been fully training with the squad, from what I can recall. He's been doing, I think he's got some sort of injury where they're just sort of trying to build him up a little bit. But when you look at that depth, there's not a lot of depth on the sidelines that can sort of come in for any of these sort of defenders besides a Noble and a Frampton. So there's a lot of work to do. I'd want Charlie Dean, after 2 years of just, you know, being insanely bad luck with injuries, I want him to have a really good season in the VFL, because I think he could be that guy that replaces like a Jeremy Howe in that back line. Third one I've got here is who can rotate through the back line. Now we know that Nick Dacos is great off the halfback. We know that he's definitely going to get more midfield minutes than he does get defensive minutes, but I do like him off that halfback for that sort of run and carry role that he has, and that high IQ, and kind of like I've got Pendles here as well. So they're your sort of quarterbacks, and we've said this a lot of times, putting these guys behind the ball. These are your quarterbacks that look at the play. They can do those sort of Hail Mary passes. I posted up that video the other day of Nick Dacos in the grand final hitting that angled 45-degree angle kick to Will Hoskin-Elliott coming off the wing. So these are the guys that can sort of set up that play. If I feel like they're sort of the level headers guys that where, you know, if we need a level head down in defence because we're sort of getting crucified there or something like that, you put these guys in here, give them the ball, let them sort it out. And the other guy here I've got that could possibly rotate through is Jack Crisp. Plays a lot of midfield minutes, but we have seen him off the half-back line. Same sort of thing with Nakos and Pendles. He will play more midfield minutes than he plays off the half-back line, but Jack Crisp goes about it in a way where, you know, not that he's that sort of quarterback, but he is that guy that sort of gets the ball, no plan, and just runs. He's that sort of, is it right if I say that kamikaze sort of defender where he will just get the ball, yeah, like I said, no plan, and just run all the way through, and he'll create something from nothing. He is a very creative defender and a creative midfielder. All you need to do is that one play from Anzac Day, or that Essendon game last year, where he sort of ran through the midfield, broke a couple of tackles, and went straight up the guts. And that's what Crisp can bring to that defense if we really need it. But those are my mainstays, my depth players, and my players who can rotate around. Let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think any of these depth players have a chance of sort of making it in? I know Demeter is one of them. TJ is a couple of years off, but do you see a Noble coming in for a Markov or Will Hoskin Elliott? Let me know in your thoughts down below. The next video I'll do is midfielders, but until then, like, comment, subscribe, Tay family, Tay friends, Tay pets, and until next time, double shackers. I'll swoop you later.